Hi there. Today I'm going to talk about children as our spiritual teachers. It's actually the title of my next book, following my first book, Caught Between Two Worlds. Then there'll be a third book, all about the signs from the universe, and included will be lots of my readings and everything like that, and helping you on a spiritual level. My purpose for today is to help you parent our special children that are being born with all six senses intact, and I'm here today to teach you about that. I channel all my information and all my lessons, and I have done over the last I don't know how many years, and I've got boxes of exercise books where I've written in order to just one day find the time to share them with you in book form or video form, which I'm now doing through my Spiritual Lessons library. Okay, children aren't what they used to be. Children aren't what they were when I was growing up. When I was growing up, 1 in 500,000 children were born like me with all six senses intact. You know, I never fitted in. I only feel like I fit in now because of all these children that are being born. They all help me fit in. I feel I've got so much company now, even though they're all shorter than me. I love working with children. I work with children on a soul level. It's the level that I work on. I just want to give you some background. I guess that, so 9 out of 10 children are born with all six senses intact. If you saw my Spiritually Back to Basics lesson, where I explained that there are only two kinds of people in the world, there are fives and there are sixes. So fives are people that are born with just 5 senses. You know, they don't believe in a sixth sense, they don't believe in spirituality, don't believe in souls, you know, all that kind of stuff, you know. So, and there's people like me who are sixes, there's people like you who are 5.5s, there are people like you who are sixes. It's normal to have 6 senses. So when I talk about 5s and 6s, this is how I want to start the story, and I guess I'm going to launch straight into I like to talk in pictures. So today I want to talk to you about little Johnny. Little Johnny is in grade 3 and he's 6. Okay, so he's spiritual, he's in his soul, he does spiritual work, he's an empath, he's compassionate, he gets messages, he might have invisible friends, all sorts of things. Now, little Johnny his mum is a 5. Okay, so she doesn't believe any of that stuff. And she believes Johnny's got some pretty bad behavioural problems, as do Johnny's teachers at school, who are also 5s. But anyway, I'll come back to that. I want to share this story with you because I feel that you'll be able to relate to it. That's probably the best way. So anyway, little Johnny comes home from school. Johnny's a 6, remember? His mum's a 5. She's sitting at the kitchen table and she's on the internet, she's on Facebook, and she's got a glass of wine. And anyway, Johnny comes in and he slams the front door and he throws his school bag on the floor, and she goes, "Oh, Johnny, you've done it again. You know, why are you always slamming the door and throwing your school bag down? Go to your room. I don't want to see you. Look, I don't like your behaviour, you know. You're not having any tea tonight. Like, it's been every night this week you've come home this way." So Johnny goes to his room and he gets on Facebook and he gets on, you know, Instagram and whatever he does, and then he starts playing games, the video games and things like that. So he will be on Michelin probably by the time he's in, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5. All right, so children, so that in that household, little Johnny doesn't do his homework that night. Mum doesn't cook tea. She's just sitting at the table. She's not interested, and it's a very toxic relationship. And probably by the time little Johnny's 11 or 12, 13 years old, he'll probably be smoking dope. Now, as a 6-year-old, and that's how I grew up, what happens to kids like us, or what happens to kids like Johnny, is they grow up into kids like me. It doesn't mean they end up being a psychic or a medium, but it does end up meaning that they feel more comfortable in the spirit world. They understand the messages. They understand the visions that they get. We don't just see with our eyes. We see with our inside eyes. We listen with our inside ears. I might be talking to you, but at the same time, I'm getting visions and personal messages and messages I can hear, messages I can see. I might be getting a message for somebody I did a reading for a couple of weeks ago, and it's kind of like, "Oh, Marion, please, this person's ready to talk to them now." So I'm getting all sorts of stuff while I'm talking to you. That's what happens to these kids. And they often have their invisible friends, but they're not invisible friends. They're only invisible to people who are fives. The kids can see them. The kids trust them. The kids know from their soul that it's real. Let's do the same scenario. Little Johnny comes home from school and he's a 6. His mum's a 6. Mum's sitting at the table waiting for him. She's tuned into him during the day because that's what mums do. That's what mums who are 5.5 and above do. Mums who are 6s do. She's tuned in. She knows that something's not right with Johnny. Anyway, Johnny comes home and he slams the door, throws his school bag on the floor, and she goes, "Hey, John, come sit down and talk to me. I've got a plate of fruit here ready for you." She doesn't say to him, "What happened at school today? You know, what'd you do at school today?" She doesn't say things like that. Spirituality at a level 6 is a totally different kind of language, and it's quite simple. She just says to Johnny, "Hey, who did you help at school today?" And Johnny goes, "I helped little Sarah today. She was really upset. She was crying because..." And Mum says, "Why was she crying?" And he says, "Because her mum and dad have split up and I gave her a hug. Is that okay?" And Mum says, "Yeah, that's fine," because Mum's a 6 too, remember. And she goes, "But Johnny, yesterday you came home and you were upset and you slammed the door and you threw your school bag on the floor. Now, I'm not going to tell you off for that because that's not your behaviour. I'll explain in a minute why you do that. And it's not okay, but I will teach you another way. So yesterday you came home from school, you slammed the door and you threw your school bag on the floor. What happened yesterday?" And he goes, "Oh, my teacher, Mrs. Jensen, was really cranky. She was in a really awful mood." And Mum says, "What do you get about that? What do you get?" Different kind of language. And Johnny goes, "Oh, I get that she had a fight with Mr. Jensen. And okay, I tried to cheer her up." And Mum goes, "Oh, okay. So today, when you helped Sarah would have walked away with a smile on her face. And yesterday you would have helped Mrs. Jensen and she would have had a smile on her face. Would that be right?" Johnny goes, "Yeah, that's right. How do you know, Mum?" Oh, Mum goes, "Well, because I understand what you're doing. You're a 6. You're an empath, Johnny." "Oh, what's an empath, Mum?" "Well, guys, years ago we used to have to teach our kids the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s and how to tie up their shoelaces and use a knife and fork. And one of the hardest talks we used to have as parents was the sex talk. One of the hardest talks we have to have these days." Well, mind you, the talk's not hard if you're a 6 already or a 5.5. One of the hardest talks we have to have these days is teaching our children how to be empaths, teaching our children how to be 6. We automatically know how to use our other 5 senses, but we don't know how to use our 6th sense. We have our 6th sense for a reason. So what do I do, says little Johnny. "Well, do you know when Mum cleans the kitchen and I clean the bench and then I've got a really dirty sponge and I wash it out under the tap and it comes out nice and clean? Well, that's the same for you. I want you to talk to me when you get home." I bet Sarah and Mrs. Jensen walked away with smiles on their faces. Yeah, they did, says little Johnny. "Yeah, but you had their feelings inside. You wanted them to, that's part of your job being an empath, is to help people be happy, take away people's anger, all right? But it's knowing when to do that as well. So what you need to do is you come home and talk to me. That's what I'm here for. We're sitting here together. I'm ready. I'm here to listen. That's the same as you washing out the sponge, or me washing out the sponge. Okay, it's like downloading the files onto your computer. You need to download by telling me about these kinds of things. Does that make sense? Yeah, that makes sense, Mum. Okay, all right, okay, let's have a hug, let's have a kiss. So little Johnny goes off and does his homework. He's not on Ritalin, he's not going to smoke dope, he's not going to do drugs. And then his mum goes and cooks dinner, a lovely healthy dinner. So there's 2 very, very different households. Johnny's not doing anything different. It's the way we parent them. Okay, so just be aware. If your child is showing behaviour where they're getting upset and they're getting angry and it doesn't seem like any reason to you, maybe you're a 5.5, maybe your child is a 6, maybe your child is your teacher. Let them be your teacher. Let them show you another way. The world is being put back into balance one family at a time by these kids, right? There are so many kids over the years that have chosen at the spiritual kitchen table, where they've chosen souls to help wake up us, people, our souls. A lot of people who have lost children, babies, before they were born and in their first year of life, those children agreed at the spiritual kitchen table to the parents to teach them the lesson of unconditional love and to help them start their own spiritual journey. By losing these children, if you imagine on a global level, all the women that are pregnant at the same time but lose their children at the same time, that's a gift that child leaves behind. That's a gift that child has left to the families. They then start their own spiritual journey. Those children reincarnate really quickly. Really, really quickly. Matter of weeks they come back. This is what I've been taught by my team. I'm sharing you what I've been taught. Okay? So these children then are reincarnated really quickly, and they then touch the lives of a new family. All right? It's like the ripple effect. Her omniscience and the universe can see, oh my gosh, how the world is so far out of balance and it's just really falling apart really quickly. Not the world, not our physical world, but us as humans. There are so many people who are 5s out there, and there are so many people who are 5.5s, and even people who are 6s who don't understand these concepts and these things that are happening to them. And it's the first time in the law of the universe that we're all awakening on a spiritual level. Okay, these children are coming back into our lives to help put the world back into balance, one family at a time. They're born with smiles on our faces. Doreen Virtue refers to them as indigo children, rainbow children, crystal children. You might refer to them as pure soul. You might refer to them as old souls. When you look into the pusher at the shop at the supermarket, oh, you've got an old soul. Oh, he's an old soul, she's an old soul. Well, you know what they really are? They're pure soul. They're simple. They just want you. They don't want their phones. They don't want their internets. And sometimes their behaviour, if you're a 5 and you're struggling with your child's behaviour, you're a 5.5 and you're struggling with your child's behaviour, ask them who they've helped. Because as empaths, that's what we do. But a lot of people don't realise that sometimes it's our lesson to actually not help somebody, to actually not interfere in that soul's journey. But I'll talk about that in my lesson about empaths. But so we don't have to, interfere. But if we do, we have to learn how to parent those children that are going through that. Now, if you've got a child, you've picked up your child from daycare, let's say, and they don't want to, I don't want to go that way, I don't want to go that way, I don't want to go that way. Trust them, because more than likely, and it's been proven to me quite a few times by people who have come to me on psychic readings, where their child has done that and they've driven that way and there's been a car accident or major roadworks that have delayed them getting to where they need to be. If your child is stalling to go to school or doesn't want to go somewhere to visit somebody, sit down with them and just sit quietly. Give them 2 minutes, 5 minutes of your time and reconnect with that child on a soul level. And ask them why they don't want to go there. Ask them. They're fighting in their house. They can see the fighting. I used to be able to see that when I walked home from school. And I would be able to go, okay, I'd use my psychic sense. Do I go home or don't I go home? But that's a whole other story. And these children are the same. They can see, like I can, when I'm talking to you, I'm also getting video. I'm watching stuff. It's kind of like I get to sit in a different layer of the universe and look down, and I can look at a person and kind of see what's happening for them. And that's what our children do. And that's why children who are born to parents of 5s and 5.25s and that kind of thing, and a lot of kids are turning to heavy drugs and heavier and heavier and heavier drugs, is because they're getting messages, they're seeing things, they're knowing things, but they don't know what to do with the information. They don't hear their mates talking about it. Their mates in the school playground don't talk about the messages. Oh, did you get that message? Oh, you should have seen this message I got last night, or this dream I had last night, or what this spirit told me, or what my invisible friend told me. They don't talk about it. They don't download, and they don't see other kids their age talking about it. So by turning to drugs, it numbs that. They don't have to think that. I know my son said to me once, and both my children have got this gift as well, but they choose not to work with it like I do, because I know it's my soul's purpose. But he actually said to me once, Mum, take it away, I don't want it anymore, I don't want to know everything about everybody, I just don't want to know, it's just too sad. I can see what people can do to help themselves. And then he'd ring me back the next day and he'd go, Mum, you didn't take it away, did you? No, I'm not going to take a gift away. You've got it for a reason. We all have. We're all on our spiritual path. We're all awakening at separate times, at different times. So in my book, I write about my son's story, okay? And when he was expelled from school when he was 5, I encourage you to read that story. His teachers at school, who I also call 5s. Now, my son's a 6. Now, his teachers at school were looking at everything on a behaviour level. They were doing everything on a discipline level. But he had other things going on a 6 level. These children who, the incidence of ADD, ADHD has increased, the diagnosis of that has increased by something like 700% in the last 8 or 9 years. These children are being diagnosed by people who are 5s, but the children are 6s, right? Pharmaceutical companies, governments, schools, corporations are all being run by people who are 5s. They can make a lot of money out of behavioural medication, but mind-altering medication, dumbing our kids down. Our kids are here on a soul and spiritual level to help make the world a better place. Let them. As the people who are governing the countries and the corporations and the buildings and the schools and all that sort of stuff, pharmaceutical companies, as they all start to die out, our children who are 6s will start running these companies totally different to their being run now. I have such faith in our kids. I love working with our kids. I do a lot of psychic testing on kids, and usually the parents come to me for a reading, and during the reading it comes out about their children, and I will do some readings on my spiritual library to share the work that I do with children. And they I've lost my train of thought. Bear with me. I have lost my train of thought totally. Anyway, so I'll just keep moving on. It's funny when that happens, and then I start to get messages, and I just get sidetracked all along. Bear with me while I. So I do this psychic testing on children, and it's not about proving. So I talk to parents I talk to parents when they come for a psychic reading, and so it always comes out about their children with me. I always say, have you got a son that's like this or a daughter that's like that? And I can sense it, I can see it. I'm watching their movie; it plays out above their head, and before I know it, they're telling me about the situations that they're going through, and then I ask them to bring their child, for a session, and through the psychic testing I do. It doesn't mean that, and the parents are sitting there going, oh my God, my children got 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 right, where the parent can only probably get 1 out of 10. All we're doing is putting our kids in touch with their sixth sense, that place of knowing, so that when it comes time to listening to or taking part in fast cars, fast drugs, fast sex, all that sort of stuff, they will know what it feels like or what it sounds like to listen to their sixth sense. And they'll know, and that is one of the best skills. It's a much better skill than teaching them ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, and how to type their shoelaces and use a knife and fork. Listening to their heart, listening to their sixth sense going forward. Understanding that some of their feelings are not their own, and that we don't react to those feelings, that we don't react to that behaviour. If it's empathic behaviour, sure, they're still naughty kids, of course there is, and they do need some kind of discipline. I would prefer that you put kids in meditation than into discipline, and sit with them and work with them on a spiritual level. They don't need to, they can be aware of helping other people, but when they're absorbing the feelings, it will boil over. And if they don't understand what's happening for them, they will end up having an internal fight in their mind, Trust me, I know about it. I did it for years. It can lead to depression. It can lead to suicide. It can lead to suicide, actual suicide, because this ends up being, you end up carrying not one monkey, but 10 monkeys in your head that don't even belong to you. All right, but I can talk about that, more about that in other sessions that on different levels. So, if your children talk to you about imaginary friends, ask them. If your children see the grandparents from years ago that probably died in the 1940s, 1950s, 1960s, they are more likely to come through and make contact to your children rather than you. So do your children show signs of they seem mature beyond their years? They might be fascinated by history and travel. You might go places. You might have taken your kids overseas and they'll go, I've been here before. I know how to get around. I used to live over there. They're amazing, these kids. Do they have nightmares? Do they have really vibrant dreams? Do they love colour? Do they love music? Do they love to dance? Are they creative? These kids are so wise beyond their years, and they have a real level of knowing that is hard to explain. There's just something special about their energy, and we can feel it. Some of these kids they get overwhelmed really easy, get overwhelmed by noise, they get restless, they get listless. They're very intuitive, very good judge of character, very good judge of situation. They need a lot of time out. They need a lot of feet in the dirt. They need a lot of barefoot on the beach. They need nature. They don't need computers. They don't even want computers. They might be bullied. They might be loners. They might find it really hard to fit in with other kids. That's because of what they're sensing, and they, on a subconscious level, they have learnt to what works for them and what doesn't. Where they fit best. They learn that. They can get very anxious in social situations, these kids, because of what they pick up. I used to do that all the time. I would go I've had to leave so many places because of what I've sensed about people. And the trouble is, when you're a human, you're not sure whether you're judging someone but it's real, because the people end up talking about what's going on. And it's really, really hard to process with your mind if you're not aware that it's your sixth sense that's developing. These children might stare. And it's usually because they're watching this world that I keep talking about. It's a psychic vision. It's like daydreaming is the best way I can explain it. They love animals. They have an amazing affinity with animals. They've got an amazing affinity with babies and pets and all sorts of things. If you'd like to know more about the psychic games, I'd like to talk to you about that. Maybe just send me a message, and rather than go into all the detail here, because it would take me quite a while to explain it. But it puts them in touch with their sixth sense and how to come to terms with it in this world. Let me help your children make sense of their gift, or make sense of their sixth sense. That's all it is, really. I did a reading for a lady a few years ago, and her beautiful little 4-year-old girl walked in, and I looked at her, and she locked eyes on me. She had big brown eyes, and she was just had this most amazing energy. She was in her soul 98% of the time. I feel like, turn around, I want to see your wings, like she was just an angel. And I kind of sat up straight, and I put my hands in my lap, and I felt quite honoured to be in this 4-year-old's presence. Anyway, I got this message in my mind, and it said, "Hi, I'm Talia," but her lips didn't move. And her mum said to her, Leah, please say hello to Marion. And I went, she already had, but her lips hadn't moved, but I didn't say that. So my old part said to me, trust this child, trust these messages. Your work is about to change. You're going to start doing more work with children on a psychic and spiritual level. So he said, trust the process, send her a message back. So I sent her a message back and I said, you're really special, aren't you? My lips didn't move. I didn't say anything. She messaged me back. Her lips didn't move. She said, I'm Mummy's teacher. I looked back at her and I said, what are you here to teach, Mum? My lips didn't move. Her lips didn't move when she sent me the message. I'm here to teach Mummy how to love and forgive people. Can I go play now? Out loud, I went, okay. And she left. And her mum, Samantha, said to me, did she just communicate with you telepathically? And I said, yeah, she did. She goes, she does it with me all the time. Try it with your kids. You know, open your mind. Remember what I said before in my spirituality back to basics. 85% of what we think are thoughts. The other 15% are channeled messages, are communication of a sixth sense or a sixth sense nature. I remember had a lady come to me, or we met each other about her son and the behaviour he was, and it's things like this. I changed names for privacy reasons. However, it's actually hard to change their names sometimes because I only know them as those names. So Amy picked up her son, I'm going to call him Lee, and Lee's 4 years old. She picked him up from daycare and Lee's sitting in the back seat, and he was one of the children that once said to Mum, don't go that way, don't go that way, don't go that way, and she wanted to go that way, and sure enough, he didn't know why. He couldn't tell her why not to go that way, but it turned out that there was some roadworks going on or an accident. I can't remember what it was, but they ended up being delayed by an hour, and then they were late for a children's party, rather than trusting, just because they're kids, they are our teachers. We can learn from our kids, they get it. They encourage it, keep it alive, don't squash it out of these kids. And then there was another mum who came up, picked her son up from daycare, and he's sitting in the back car seat, and he's going, Mum, got to go to Bunnings. He's 4 or 5, whatever he is. Mum, got to go to Bunnings, got to go to Bunnings. What? I'm not going to Bunnings. I've got to go home. I've got to get the washing off the line. I've got to get tea ready. Mum, got to go to Bunnings. Why do I have to go to Bunnings? She says to him, and he's in the back seat. Got to go get a white thing and get 4 holes. Get 4 holes, white thing. Anyway, Mum says, I'm not going to Bunnings. No, going home. Well, that afternoon, they decided to put up the Christmas tree. And then they had to go to Bunnings to buy an extension board, power board, that had 4 power points. He already knew. It's so much fun. Don't make it hard. Don't make it complicated. These kids are fun. They're, I could tell you so many stories about kids that know things that adults don't know. There was a lovely girl whose mum came to me for a reading, and the mum's mother, excuse me, lost one of her bracelets, and in the reading I'd said to the mum, she came to see me about a different issue, but I said, you've got a really special daughter, she's really, I could learn from her. She's very switched on, very psychic, very, and one of our new age children that I call them, or what I call pure souls. Anyway, she filed the information away and she didn't really think about it. But a few months later, when her mum came over to visit her and said, hey, I've lost my gold bangle. Have you seen it anywhere? And she said, no. And then she remembered what I'd said to her about her daughter. And she said, hey, Sarah, I like to use Sarah. Sarah, you don't know where Grandma's bracelet is, do you? And at the time, Sarah was 5. And Sarah went, and they do that. They stare. You watch them. You ask them a question. They will stare when they're answering it on a psychic level. And she goes, yeah, it's in Grandma's shed, in the white bag in the corner. And Mum said, you've never been in Grandma's shed. Grandma's shed's locked. How do you know it's there? And she said, Mum, you asked me a question. I told you the answer. And she walked away. So anyway, that afternoon they went over to Grandma's house, looked around. Is it in this room? Sarah, is it in this room? No, I told you it's in the shed, Mum. So they took a shortcut and they went out to the shed. The shed's always locked. The kids have never been in there. And there in the corner, in the white bag that was about to go to the salvos, was the bracelet or the bangle. The little girl had never been in that shed, but she had a vision. She looked around, she watched around, and she kind of reviewed what had happened for Grandma in the previous few days, and she saw the bracelet. You know, some of the simple things that you can do with kids on that psychic testing that I was saying is you can play the one about the colours, the red, green, blue, yellow. And you can do it with colour pencils or texters or whatever, and you say, and you choose a colour. Think of a colour. And you say to your child, I'm thinking of a colour. I want you to tell me what you know it is. I don't want you to guess. I want you to tell me what you know it is. What do you want to say it is? What do you see? What do you see this colour as? And let's say you've chosen red. And they go, yellow. You go, no, that's a guess. I want you to tell me what you know it is. What do you feel the colour is here? And they will either give you red straight away or they'll give you blue. And it doesn't matter if the first one's wrong. It really doesn't matter at all. But if it's red, if they say red, okay, then do it again. This time you've chosen blue. And let's say they go, so you say to them, what colour am I thinking? And they go, green. And you go, no, that was a guess. See how quick, you did it? I want you to tell me what you know it is. They feel different. Oh, okay, yeah, blue, yeah. Okay, so good. And then you do it again. And then you can do it with numbers, 1 to 4. Then you can do it with shapes, squares, circle, hearts and triangles, right? So every time say, right, from where you knew that was blue, I want you to tell me what this is. What am I thinking now? What number am I thinking? And you can just do it around the house. What colour am I thinking? And they'll just, from the other room, they'll yell out, green, number 4. It's putting them in touch with that sixth sense, and it's showing you too that that they've got this other sense. You can play the games in reverse if you like. There's a method to that, and if you want to know more, just send me a message. Children are so special these days. Please don't squash their sixth sense out of them. I remember when my daughter was, 15 months old, and she'd been crying and crying and crying, and we'd all, my mum and my dad and my husband, we'd all had a go at trying to calm her down, and we couldn't. So we sat on the lounge and we were exasperated, with her crying, and I sat on the lounge and I had her in my lap this way. So her head was here and her legs were up here, and she was on her back. And I was just sitting there looking at her going, I don't know how to help you. And she was crying and crying. All of us were sitting there. Suddenly my son came in, who was 3. He came in, I can see it clear as day still, no top on, came in his little nappy, stood at her head, put his hands around her. He didn't say anything, but we just watched him. Put his hands around her head like that twice. Still makes me want to cry. Sorry. Put his hand on her heart. Put her to sleep. And walked away. Our kids are special. Let them be. They're in your life for a reason. Children are our spiritual teachers.